Another test flight on the MinimumRC Micro Spitfire after moving the CG back a little bit and replacing the aileron servo. And that has worked out very well. Ooh, right in the sun. Now I'm flying this in a little more wind than I would probably recommend. Let's check out this aileron and see how maneuverable it is. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like the amount of expo got in there. Nice roll rate. Bring it back in here. Nice loop. Yeah, this stock setup has adequate power. Got a car coming through. Should we chase him? Let's bomb him. Nice roll rate on it now, man. I've got no complaints about that. Little split S there. Now moving the CG back, I still need to put a little back pressure on the elevator in turns, but not as much as I did. I would say on your maiden flight, stick with the specified CG, see how you like it. I think that will definitely give you a good maiden flight, and then move it back a little bit and see how you like that. I like my planes with as neutral a balance as I can get on them without it feeling tail heavy. There's my alarm. Let's go one more circuit and we'll bring it in. Nice flying little Spitfire. Alright, I think I might even move my CG back just a little bit further. I wanted to come in on that flight to land with complete power off, and I couldn't flare it as much as I wanted to, so I think I'm going to move it back a little bit more and see how I like that. Put another battery pack in it. Another test flight on the MinimumRC Spitfire. Let's get it in the air. Now I moved the CG back ever so slightly again. and you can see it reacting to the wind. Now remember, this little plane has no gyro system. This is just all manual. And we're out here flying in 4 to 7 mile an hour wind. So that's kind of a testament to the stability of the airframe. You can see it getting moved around there in the wind. So my recommendation for this plane for outdoor flight would be 5 mile an hour or less wind. I think that you know, gusting up to 7 mile an hour is just a little bit too much for it. I think this plane would make a good, it's a good outdoor plane in 5 mile an hour or less wind, and I think it would be a good indoor plane too. So something else to put on your list for this winter, if you're looking for planes that you could fly indoors, I think this might be a good candidate for that. Indoor, outdoor plane. This battery feels a little soft. As far as voltage, maybe, just didn't feel like I had a full charge when I launched it. But I think I like the CG where I have it. Like I said, I'm back about 3-4 millimeters from stock. About 13-14 millimeters back. Wind shifting on me. See that? Yeah, wind is about 180 degrees, shifted 180 degrees from where it was when I launched it. And it's picking up a little bit. So that's not too shabby, you know, a plane that weighs 32.9 grams, flying in 4 to 7 mile an hour wind, no gyro, not too bad. All right, so let's bring it back in again, into the wind. The opposite direction I launched. All right. So the MinimumRC, and I like that. I like the CG there. I like the CG at about 13 to 14 millimeters back from the leading edge of the wing. You can see it. Maybe you can see my mark here at 10 millimeters. So I'm just in front of this line that goes across the wing. That's where I'm setting my CG. So about 3 or 4 millimeters back from the specified CG, and I like the balance on the plane there. So nice flying, little plane. I didn't intend to test it in wind, but I did. So we're flying in 4 to 7 mile an hour wind, and I think it handled it pretty well. But I don't think I would recommend it over 5 mile an hour wind outdoors. So I'm going to put another battery in it. See you in a bit.
Okay, so what did you guys think of the little MinimumRC Spitfire? I did not have to modify any of the setup other than I had a aileron servo that was just not up to speed. I got that replaced and then we were off to the races. The only modification that I made to this plane, because of where I have to land, if you have a nice grassy area to land on, you won't have to worry about it. But what I did was I just took a little section of one of those little 4-inch zip ties. I cut a little section out of it, drilled a hole in the center of the foam, and then glued that in to give me a little arc right where my receiver is, just so that when I came in for a landing I didn't damage the receiver or the control horns on the ailerons, and that seemed to work out pretty well. As you can see in the test flights, it's a very maneuverable, fairly aerobatic. I think it has adequate power for such a tiny, lightweight plane. It's a lot of fun to fly, and I think this plane would be a good candidate not only for outdoor but for indoor during the winter as well. As you saw in the end of the video, I wouldn't recommend more than 5 mile an hour wind outdoors. I flew it in 4 to 7, as you saw in the video. I think it was a little bit much for it. You know, you really kind of have to work the stick a little bit when it's kicking up to 7 mile an hour. But it's a very fun plane to fly. The build is very straightforward. It's a piece of cake. If you, I think I published the entire build video on the MinimumRC F8F Rare Bear. This plane is a little bit different material. This is made out of Depron Aero foam, and this is made out of PP board foam. I actually like this material a lot better than the Depron Aero because this is more rigid material. So what I've decided to do for this plane and going forward is whenever I buy a new plane, one piece of information that would be valuable to me is not only the published CG, where the CG location should be, but also what your control surface deflection should be on the aircraft for a successful maiden flight. I mean, that would be great information to have. Unfortunately, you don't usually get it. So what I'm doing now is I've created this sheet, this aircraft setup sheet for this MinimumRC Spitfire, but I'm going to start doing this with all my planes now, and I'll have a link to it. It's a PDF file. I'll have a link to it in the show notes of the video for this plane. But it'll have, you know, not only does it have the control surface deflection and where I have my CG location, but also where the specified CG location is and what my deflection is in millimeters of travel for each one of the control surfaces, aileron, elevator, rudder, etc., along with the amount of expo that I'm using in it. So I think that would be a huge benefit to anybody that's wanting to, you know, set up their aircraft for a successful maiden flight first time out. I'm going to be naming these files with REV1, 2, 3, 4, etc. at the end of the file name, because there are instances where after I've gotten a lot more time on an aircraft and I've done more aerobatics with it, I may decide, you know, I'd like a little faster roll rate, or maybe a little slower roll rate, or maybe I feel like I need a little more rudder in it. And so if I modify the setup later on and in additional flights, when I've tested the plane out even more, I may update my setup on that plane. And if I do, then this is revision 1 for this aircraft. So if I ever update this again, you'll know, because it'll have a revision 2 in the title, and then the end of the file name will also have a Rev 2 on it instead of a Rev 1. So just by looking at the document file and the document itself, you'll know which one is the most up-to-date setup for that aircraft. So there you go. I'll have a link to the plane in the show notes, all the associated electronics and stuff that I used. This was actually a bind and flight kit. Came with the battery and everything. All I needed to have was the transmitter to bind to it. So that's great. If you've never been to MinimumRC's website, take a look at it, because they have tons of electronics and stuff for these micro and nano planes. So even if you're just looking to do a conversion or build your own plane, or build one of our Glue and Fly series planes, since we just came out with our first nano not too long ago, don't forget they carry all the electronics for these tiny planes. So and the servos and stuff, the receiver, are precisely the same electronics that I purchased when I'm building my Nano Plane, or if I'm converting a micro plane. So they have a lot of really cool electronics there for nano and micro planes. So don't forget to take a look at them. I'm sure there's a link in the show notes to their website as well. I want to thank them again for sending this plane for review. Pretty cool little plane. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the air.